Welcome to Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by area realtor Jim York and York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information about the local real estate market, featuring leading experts in the real estate field.
Welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Morgan York with the York Real Estate Group, and today we're joined with our host Jim York and his guest, Senator Kathleen Passidomo.
Thank you, Morgan, for the introduction. Well, Senator, thank you for coming on our show. Congratulations on your re-election. So let's tell our viewers, maybe the people that don't know about you, a little bit about yourself and your district, what you're representing.
Sure. I was elected to the Florida Senate in November of 2016. I'd served in the Florida House from 2010 to 2016. The Senate district is, first of all, we represent 500,000 people, so it's a very large district that encompasses all of Collier County, all of Hendry County, Bonita Springs, half of Estero, and half of Lehigh Acres.
In your sessions there, how long and when are they from?
The legislature meets, we're considered a citizen legislature, so we're allegedly part-time, although I think that's the biggest lie in Tallahassee is that it's a part-time job. We meet in session for 60 days, and on odd years it begins the first Tuesday in March and goes for 60 days. In even years it begins, I think, the second Tuesday in January and goes for 60 days. In the interim, we have committee weeks, which usually start in September, October, where you're up there for a couple of weeks, a month. And that's when a lot of the bill review process begins. And the budget process, you meet with agencies to find out what their budget process is. And then during session, the bills go through the system, the budget goes through the system, and our number one job, and it's our only constitutional job, is to pass a balanced budget. And in the 7 years I've been in the legislature, we've been able to do that, although this year we had to extend session to finalize the budget. And after that, we don't have any other constitutional requirements except every 10 years to redistrict our districts based upon the population changes.
Well, today you're here, which I'm thankful for, is that you've passed a lot of new laws pertaining to real estate. And the first one here was cap on estoppel certificate fees. So maybe explain how that is. Sure.
Actually, the estoppel issue is, it's almost confounding as to why it became such a big issue. But here's the problem that was occurring. I practiced real estate law for 30 some odd years.
That's right.
And over the years, whenever you do a closing, when there's a homeowners association, you want to make sure that the assessments or any fees or charges due to the association have been paid. So you obtain an estoppel, is what we would call it. It's basically a bill from the association as to what the seller owes. And for so many years, there was no charge, or maybe it was $25 charge.
Right.
Well, what was happening was it became a revenue source for the property management companies. And it got even worse than that, because they would cut a deal with the condo or homeowners association to manage the property at a discounted rate, with the caveat that they could charge whatever they wanted for the estoppel. And the reason they got away with it, because it's an exit tax. The seller is leaving. Nobody cared.
Right.
We had instances, particularly on the East Coast, where it became almost outrageous. A $200,000 closing and the estoppel fee was $1,400.
Wow.
That's a percentage, you know. So every year, starting in 2016, we've tried to put caps on it, and it was fought bitterly. And I jokingly say that we spent more time on that bill over the last 6 years than we did on the death penalty bill and on the alimony bill, which are things that are very serious, affect your day-to-day life. So this year we passed a bill. There is now a cap. They cannot charge more than $250 for the fee. Some people don't like that because it means they are going to charge 250 no matter what. And then there are time frames within which they need to provide the estoppel. They can charge extra if you need it on an expedited basis and the like. It's a good process that we negotiated with the community association management companies, at least to protect the seller so that they don't have unreasonable fees to sell their property.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they've been charging and getting away with it. So when does that go into effect?
I believe July 1st.
July 1st. The next thing that you've passed is a 10% cap on non-homestead property taxes.
Well, we had, the legislature had passed that, had passed the bill, and then it was in the Constitution. The voters voted for the cap, but it sunsets in 2018, so this would be a renewal and making it permanent, the 10%. It would have to go before the voters.
And I guess you've passed $270 million for affordable housing projects. How's that dispute?
Well, that's a good thing. You know, we are accused oftentimes of taking funds that belong in trust funds and then for affordable housing and then spending them for regular budget items. But this year we have recognized that the state of Florida, as the economy is getting better, and particularly in areas like Collier County, Lee County, and the coastal areas, affordable housing is not to be found.
It's not to be.
And so we're making a concerted effort to provide funding for projects that are going to reduce costs and the like. The devil will be in the details on that. I know that every community has to sit down and look at their needs, and I know Collier County has got that underway, and other places in the state as well. Workforce housing is really tough, and it's, you know, for teachers and law enforcement and people that are the service people that day to day, and if they have to travel really far, they're not going to come.
No, they're not going to come. It's been a huge problem here. Right. I don't know about other parts of the state, but land's so expensive here.
Right.
So.
Well, we had, interestingly enough, during the economic downturn, we had a lot of properties that were in foreclosure, and that kept the problem at bay for a couple of years. But we didn't have people to take those houses because we didn't have the jobs. As the jobs are coming back, the cost of housing is increased, so that it's almost like a roller coaster for people that are living in these homes.
Right. Well, we're going to take a little short break here, Senator, and we'll be right back in 1 minute.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group associated with the #1 brokerage in Naples, Downing Fry Realty, which produced $1.9 billion in sales in 2014, controlling 43% of all transactions in Naples. Jim, Michael, and Morgan York make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. With over $250 million in sales transactions, they can offer you the expertise and trust you want and need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website, www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Welcome back. How about additional homestead tax exemptions?
We did pass a bill this year to put on the ballot another $25,000 exemption to add to the current $25,000 tax exemption. That's going to, if the voters vote in favor of it, would lead to about a $600 million savings, maybe $650 million the first year, and then it's capped between homes with a value of between $100,000 and $125,000. And that was part of the negotiations because it is a big number. And a lot of the cities and counties were against the bill. I had some concerns about it because we have some fiscally constrained counties that are already capped out at their millage rate, and so with that exemption would probably, and those are the kind of homes that are in those counties,
right.
it could very seriously impair their ability to operate. So we carved out fiscally constrained counties. One of the things that I'm a little troubled by is that we did not carve out the fiscally constrained cities in those counties. So when you have small cities like LaBelle and Clewiston that are in my district, and the bill passed, and I did get a commitment from the bill sponsor, because we do have another session, that we could tweak it a little bit so that we could carve out some of these small towns that just could not afford that exemption. But you know, that's a good tax savings plan for our lower income people that own property.
Yeah, it definitely is. Tax exemptions for disabled first responders.
That was another exemption that we put in place that went to the voters in an amendment. It did sunset. So, a lot of these bills do sunset, a lot of these tax breaks and other provisions, and so this would make that permanent. These are first responders that are killed in the line of duty, and basically, and it's not fortunately, I think, it's not a great number, but it's a way for us to show those appreciation for those people who give their lives for us and their families. Yeah,
that's something very nice. Yeah. How about condominium oversight?
We did every year we do some condominium bills, and I worked on one, and then there was another big bill, and that was as a result of a lot of abuses by boards of directors of condominium associations, mainly on the East Coast. Things like having a debit card issued to board members, which they use freely for personal expenses. Board members refusing to hold meetings, not sending out notices, basically treating their members as if they were renters. And so this bill that we passed and the governor signed into law really clamps down on abuses by those boards of directors that won't even listen to their homeowners.
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware, maybe you are, okay, but we had a client this year that, or it was last year really, there was a school teacher here in Collier County that her and her husband were buying a condominium, and her credit score was, it was just in her name, okay? Credit score was like 710, okay, and the credit score was from the bank. She was getting a mortgage, okay? The homeowners association did a background check and a credit thing, and it came in at 695, 690 or 695, and they passed in their association. The board did. I don't know if it was recorded or not, because the attorney that we're using for closing said, "I don't know if we can fight this." We talked to the representatives, and then he says it's maybe cost more to fight it than not to fight it. But she was declined by the association because of her credit score being under 700.
Really? That doesn't sound right to me.
It's right.
It doesn't sound right.
But I'll get you that information. And they said that there's more and more associations doing this. The realtor, I was the buyer's agent. The realtor that was the listing agent, which is an experienced listing, agent in the area, she says, what would happen if the person was paying cash? Went through a foreclosure or a short sale in the downturn, and they're trying to build their credit up, and they're going to be declined too. I guess that's the truth. I would
hazard a guess that there is something a little bit more to that issue. For example, if it were a co-op, they do have a lot more flexibility to deny someone because of financial reasons, because obviously you don't own, everybody owns everything. Or if there were a land lease or any kind of potential risk because of a payment. Whereas if it's just the annual assessments, I'd find it hard to believe that they would turn her down.
Especially when the mortgage was approved. That's where even the mortgage company that we were doing business with, it was a bank. The bank says they've never heard of this, and our attorney, which is Don Ross, which called their association and said that that's their new rules now. They're So
That's
you know,
interesting.
he said that how you're going to fight this, and you know, ladies, a school teacher is not, you know, doesn't make a ton of money, and he said it's going to cost her more to fight it than it's worth.
See, and to me that's sort of short-sighted, because I understand where an association is coming from. A lot of them that had to deal with the economic downturn,
Right,
where
right.
you know, you had one or two people that were paying all the water bills and electric bills to keep the electricity going in all the units so that mold didn't develop, and so they're a little gun shy. But if somebody has a good job,
12 years at Collier County School District.
yeah, so to me there's, you know what, there's always another side to a story we just don't know about.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk for a few minutes before we go to break on what didn't pass.
Well, I had what I think is a very important bill on the Marketable Record Title Act that all people who live in associations should be concerned about, and that is that under Florida law, the covenants and restrictions of a property owner's or of a homeowner association or any association become void and of no effect 30 years after they're recorded unless they are renewed. And under Florida law, there's a renewal process that is very complicated and hard to accomplish because it requires a vote of unit owners. And you know what it's like.
That's
to
right.
get people to come to a meeting,
Right.
no less to vote to renew covenants, is almost a Herculean task. So a lot of these associations are now bumping up on that 30-year period, and many of them are becoming extinct, if you will. Now here's what happens. If the association, or if the covenants are no longer effective, how do you manage the water management?
Right.
You can't even collect assessments if you're a board. And so I had a bill in the system that would make it easier to revitalize covenants and the like. And unfortunately, it didn't make it through because somebody threw a really bad amendment on it, which happens to bills. So we need to get that through because there are going to be a number of associations, and commercial associations aren't even covered, so they are going to be in serious trouble.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, well, we're going to take another little short break, and we're going to be back in 1 minute. Thank you.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Bonita Springs, or Estero? Think of the most experienced realtors. The York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Let's have a look at what the McLeans have to say about their experience working with the York Real Estate Group.
Jim York was our broker in acquiring our present home in Bonita Springs. His knowledge and integrity made the process go very smoothly.
It was a pleasure doing business with Jim York. Everything was done in a superbly professional manner.
Welcome back. Let's talk about property values, maybe. Where do you see that?
Well, you know, we're lucky in Southwest Florida that the values are increasing exponentially, but so is the cost of ownership of these properties. You know, our county commission is now considering an increase in the ad valorem tax for acquisition of environmentally sensitive lands. Our property insurance is going up exponentially because of some abuses in the East Coast in the assignment of benefits area, and that's becoming a real problem where people are basically defrauding insurance companies, and of course the rates are going up. So that's something that we have to address in the legislature.
In workman's comp?
That's something, the Florida Supreme Court held that our workers' comp statute was unconstitutional, and because they felt that there was not enough access to court by people that are injured. The upshot of that is that immediately our workers' comp rates went up 14.5%, and they're going to continue to rise. So the legislature has a couple of big jobs next session. We should have done something about workers' comp this past session, and the assignment of benefits issue. We didn't get that done. We're going to have to come back and do that. I think we accomplished a great deal. Our number one accomplishment was to sort of put the final touch to a plan to restore the Everglades and to continue whatever efforts we had done in the past, but to bring it in the forefront And I think everybody knows where our goal is with regard to the Everglades, which is really our lifeblood.
Right, that was my next question, but how about the reservoir up in
Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah.
We, at the very last minute during session, we put $50 million at the request of the governor in the budget to continue the repairs to the Herbert Hoover Dike. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that in addition to the issues we have with discharges from the lake that are polluting Caloosahatchee River and the St. Lucie River, and the problem of fresh water getting out of the lake into the Everglades, the dike itself, which is a big dam, is probably in worse shape than the levee was in New Orleans. And repair work has been ongoing and is expected to be completed in like 2025 or something like that. But right now, if we had a catastrophic storm, we don't know if the dike will hold. So we've got to start putting money into shoring that up.
Well, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Huh? That's scary. And how about, the Senate just presented a new health bill today. How is that going to affect? Have you had time to look at Florida?
Well, depending on what they end up doing, our goal has always been to allow the individual states to determine their own plan for healthcare delivery. We've talked about in the legislature, our thoughts are we'd like to get a block grant from the federal government, give us the funds, and let us determine how to spend it. I've long been an advocate of looking first at wellness issues and trying to divert people from the emergency room, because so many people use the emergency room as their primary care doctor, and that doesn't make sense. Well, when doctors aren't accepting new patients and they're not accepting Medicaid patients, there is no alternative. So I think if the state's going to fund a program, then what we need to do is start helping with those walk-in clinics and charity clinics and getting people out of the emergency room and get them seen somewhere. You know, we keep talking about trying to buy affordable insurance or helping people buy affordable insurance. The reality is, even with insurance, in some places you can't get into a doctor. So the real issue is access to health care. How do we get patients in to see doctors, into clinics or the like, so that they don't end up in the emergency room? And that's something that I'm committed to working on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for everything you've done for us in our area, and especially for the real estate industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.